Well, good evening, everyone. It's good to be here on the East Coast. It's 8:30. I'm not sure wherever you are, but I thank you all for being here because I know it's getting late, and I thank you all for coming here to listen to me and to be a part of this. And I'm honored as well to be invited here. I came here a few years ago, and I had a great time, and I'm appreciative that they're allowing me to come back. I guess I did something right the first time. So I will be talking to you about nonprofits, and I will in a minute I will be giving you a little bit of background about myself. My name is Karim Hanafy, and a nonprofit attorney. But just before I do, I'm going to sort of give you an overview. What you're going to learn today, what I'm going to be teaching all of you, I want to give you some inspiring examples of real nonprofits, so that to help you realize that anyone can get a nonprofit, easy to do, and get the immediate tax benefits while you're supporting those causes that you want to do out there. Get the funding, hopefully, to be able to get the funding so that you can fund your purpose and your missions to be able to carry out your nonprofit to become successful. And the whole purpose with these is not only funding, but setting up for success, because the ultimate goal and objective, especially for many of our clients who are at Anderson, they can grow their assets within their 501c3 and watch that impact multiply, making a difference out there. They can create this legacy that can last for many generations as well. And you can help others in needs to see the real lives that are being changed out there and that impact that you're making. And then what's important as well, again, for our clients, to empower the family to serve as stewards and leaders out there. So a little bit of background about myself. My name is Karim Hanafy. I've had over 25 years of working in this area. I started off working at the IRS. I was working in the IRS in the tax exempt division, where I'd been there for about 5 years. I worked with many experts in the field, over hundreds of years of experience that I was working with alongside them, learning from them, learning about the process, learning the application process, learning the audit process. I wanted to make sure I understood how these applications were reviewed, because I knew at some point I was going to go out into private practice. Didn't want to stay there for indefinitely, although I did enjoy it and it was great with the government benefits. And I worked literally one block from the White House, and we had to evacuate the building on 9/11 because they felt that the plane was coming and they thought it would be coming for the White House. So we all had to evacuate. So I was there at that time. I loved working there. I loved the experience there. But I was ready to move on into private practice. I really wanted to work with clients, and I did, and I have been. And over the years, I've worked with over 1,500 clients. Some of them that I'm proud of includes the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Before they really built this team in-house, they were starting on the outside, and we had helped them with that. I lived in Atlanta working with a global firm named Eversheds. It was Sutherland, Asbin and Brennan at the time, but it's now called Evershed Sutherland. And we worked for the Coca-Cola Foundation, one of our big clients, and the Home Depot Foundation as well. So it was great to go into those offices to be able to work with them and to advise them when it comes to setting up the foundation and the donations that they wanted to make. One of them included the Georgia Aquarium, which one of the founders for Home Depot was Bernie Marcus, and they were able to collaborate and we were able to help with that. So again, it was great to be working on the outside with a lot of these clients. And again, with the experience that I've had, I'm now working with over 1,500 clients. Every one of our applications have been approved, something that I'm very proud of, the fact that not one application has been denied at this point. And of course, I am passionate about helping everyone wanting to build that legacy and that community impact. And just sort of, kind of show you just how many people we have worked with and been successful with. This is basically every face that we've had. It tells a story of the people that we represent and the lives and the communities that have been empowered together. So we've seen from all walks of life. I've talked to you about the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, sure, but that's not what's representative of the clients that I work with. I work with much smaller organizations all the time, because starting a nonprofit is very easy. You just got to be a giver. All you need is one person. That's it. Just one person to start up the nonprofit. You don't need a big team. You can certainly add to the team if you want to do that, but all you need is one person. It's easy to use, it's easy to donate into, to get the tax deductions, and it's easy to make that impact that you want to do out in the world, whether it's domestically or internationally. So again, it's easy to set up, but Start now is what I always tell them. One of our clients started with just an idea and is now feeding 200 families a month, and it doesn't cost him that much to be able to do that. Another one is doing it internationally, also being able to do it internationally to feed hundreds of people. And you'll see us with some of the slides and the examples of the clients that I've worked with. One of the first ones that I worked with when I left and went out to the private sector, which I was proud of, was this client here for What a Life Foundation, and she was featured in Oprah, in the Oprah magazine. So what she was doing is basically helping those children who had been receiving medical care and treatment, were removed, from the hospital, coming to the house. Very difficult for them as they're on the road to recovery. So she wanted to paint the inside of their rooms. She was an interior designer, using her skills to help others during difficult times. So it kind of highlights, many of the nonprofits we work with representative of what she does, but it's in other shapes, overcoming disabilities and medical issues, those who have special needs, and it can be, say, horseback riding. I had one with dolphins as well, helping those that were overcoming issues, mental challenges, or just supporting other organizations that are doing these types of activities. So using the skills that you have, and some other examples, even giving them toys, going to the hospitals and giving out toys to people as well. But what I'm highlighting with this is she was able to use her skill set to be able to help others, which is what we see all the time with our clients. What sort of skill set do you have? We have engineers, and what do they want to do? Obviously the big thing, AI, technology, coding, all of these things we know are going to be the future. So they want to teach them with this, especially for underserved and those in underserved communities where education may be an issue, and they want to help them, to elevate them, to give them these opportunities. But it doesn't just have to be underserved, it could be anyone. So we see a lot of that with AI, but we also see with doctors as well. What's interesting with doctors, let's say you have a dentist and he wants to help patients that can't afford medical treatment. So he wants to provide free dental care. Using his own facilities, he can do that. So just using the same space that you have to be able to dedicate it for a certain period of time to help patients provide certain procedures. It could be braces. It could be just simple, cavities and just simple checkups as well, and cleaning. So we've seen a lot of doctors doing stuff like that. It doesn't just have to be dentists, but all types of doctors providing free medical care as well. So again, people using their experience and their expertise. For lawyers, we've seen for a lot of pro bono work that they're doing, helping people, let's say, for landlord-tenant issues and disputes that may come up. So again, they're applying the skill set that they have to help others if they can do that. And then finally, of course, there's many that are just giving food drives. It's very common, humanitarian relief, to help support those who are the low income and needy individuals. Here's another example of a client. He was a veteran. And for any veterans out there, thank you for your service to our country. And this individual is helping for those veterans having recovery and mental health. Unfortunately, it's a common issue, whether it's PTSD, marital issues, even medical issues. These things come up all the time as challenges that they're facing. And what they need sometimes is a place to stay, especially for those experiencing homelessness. So for this client, he's actually providing shared housing. So it's not a house just for one individual, but if you have 4 bedrooms with 8 beds, he's providing up to 8 beds for veterans or anyone with mental health or any recovery issues. And it's not only just providing them a place to stay, he's helping them. He wants to help them find jobs, help them with job placement, help them with resume building, preparing for interviews as well. And of course, just kind of get them back on their feet as well. And this is what one of our clients does. It's a fantastic thing that he's doing. Finally, there's another one here, not only giving domestically, but also internationally. It's a family foundation, but it's a family foundation because they initially funded it, and he funded it with a lot of crypto that he had. But of course, he's seeking any sort of support to help him with these causes and this charitable work that he's doing. Clean water is an issue, especially in Africa. There are many villages in many areas where you don't have any clean water. So kids have to walk miles. They spend the whole day going to nearby villages. They have to skip school. They're not allowed to go to school because they need to go to nearby villages to get water. It can take them 6 to 8 to 10 hours to be able to do that. And if they use local water where they are, many of them die from dysentery, and it's unsanitary as well. It's the issues that come up in many areas. But just a water well, which is very cheap to install and to do, maybe up to $1,000, can feed and can fill for hundreds of people within a community. And what an impact it can make, and what a huge need there is for it in many, many areas, not just in Africa, but also in Asia as well. And then finally, food distribution, because the dollar is so strong, especially against the third world countries, it's very easy to make these distributions. And that's what this nonprofit does. So whether you choose to do it domestically or internationally, there are so many opportunities that you have of what you can do with very little money. It's easy to make an impact with very little money. You don't need much. I was actually talking to a client yesterday, and they were just excited about the opportunities they were going to have locally. It didn't matter. They cared about helping 2 and 3 and 5 people, and to them that just made it a difference. It was very rewarding. Their analogy was like, if I go to the restaurant and I give a tip and the waiter sees the tip and they're excited, I'm very happy to see just how happy they are. I'm not thinking to myself, I should be giving a tip to 10 other people and see how they smile. I care about the one person that I'm helping right now. And that's what he said about the nonprofit. The few people that he's going to help, it doesn't matter if it's not going to be hundreds. He's very happy that it's going to be tens for the time being. He's going to love the impact that he's going to make on each one of them individually. You start small, and then from there you can build. And as you'll see with some of the examples that I provide here of the opportunities to be able to build. So you are a better steward of your money, and that's an important thing to think about. You can ensure every dollar you give makes a real difference in your community. It's either you or the government. And of course, every time I've asked, how many of you think that the government is going to be a better steward of your money than you are? Of course, we know. I've never seen anyone raise their hand. Just to give you an idea of how your taxpayer dollars are being spent. $1.5 million to study fish on treadmills. Now, I'm not making this up, by the way. This is real. This has been reported for this. Another is $700,000 funding to maintain a detention facility, only to discover it was demolished 7 years earlier. How about another one? Nearly $1 million study to determine why chimpanzees throw their feces. Apparently, it's a sign of genius when they do this. So I'm not sure what that's going to prove, but still, they're still spending the money for this. How about $500,000 to teach pigeons to gamble? So just keep in mind, if you happen to see a pigeon on the street, just remember, perhaps maybe he was a genius one time, like those chimpanzees that throw their feces, but he's down on hard times. So please try not to judge them. And then finally, here's the one that I just think is the most interesting one. $7 million AI toilet equipped with cameras that scan the user's waist and unique anal print. So, if you're walking down the street and someone says, "Hey, Steve, how you doing?" And you're like, "How did you know my name?" Well, I recognize you by your anal print, so please excuse me. So these are the things that are being used, your taxpayer dollars at work. So, which would you rather support? Would you rather support a fish on treadmill, or would you rather support helping those who are in need with poverty? And those who are homeless, those experiencing homelessness and, PTSD. Would you rather support this, or would you rather support elderlies? Would you rather support the veterans, our veterans of this country? I think the choice is very obvious. For that, I say, form your own nonprofit. Again, as I said before, it's very easy. You can build your legacy. For many of our clients within Anderson, this is a description, and this sums up what the nonprofits look like. We have appointed trusted family members as permanent directors to preserve your mission. And by the way, I should say this, I did forget to mention this. I have been working with Anderson and Anderson Business Advisors, and I'll be saying it again later, for about 5 years. And since I've worked with them, we have worked with over 1,200 clients. I had 15 years of experience in private practice, 5 years with the IRS before I joined Anderson. And I've been here for 5 years. And since being within Anderson, I've gained another 15 to 20 years of experience. It's because of the volume that we see. And what you see here is a characteristic of what our clients have. Wasn't necessarily the sort of clients that I was working with when I worked at the law firm. The law firm was working with these large private foundations and people who had millions and billions of dollars in terms of their net worth. But that's not what we see within Anderson. All shapes and sizes, again, you just have to be a giver. And for many of them, they want to build that legacy. And that's what we want to do and help them. Let's create as permanent directors, for example. This is your baby. You set it up, you funded it, you donated it. You want to be able to determine the direction of where it's going to go. You don't want other people to come in and kind of make these decisions for you. So you can be a permanent director. And we have this all the time within Anderson. And I can tell you this, and it was mentioned before with Kendall, about the fact of AI. If you go onto AI and ask them about having something like permanent directors that are going to be on the board, and they're going to tell you, you shouldn't have this, you can't have this. And I am telling you from experience of filing over 1,000 applications, of which almost all of them we include permanent director language within the bylaws to ensure that they have some strength and power and longevity within the nonprofit. We have never heard from the IRS that you cannot have a permanent director in there. So again, just giving you from my experience of working here, it empowers your family to serve as stewards on the board, and you can direct how the assets are going to be invested to make an impact. You can invest tax-free in stocks, real estate, and even crypto. And then the last thing is maintaining this long-term control over your nonprofit's investments, purpose, and giving. Keep in mind, with all of these, you are a fiduciary of your nonprofit, so you want to ensure that what you're doing is in the best interest of not only the nonprofit, but the communities that you're serving. You're not doing it for your own personal benefits. That's the important thing of having these characteristics. But again, we've seen this time and time again. So what kind of nonprofit will you start? These are all the different types that we have seen with our clients and our nonprofits. And just imagine your nonprofit making a difference like this, helping the hungry, the homeless, any poor families, victims of domestic abuse, and all of these things that you do here. Keep in mind, if you want to get a tax deduction, which we'll talk about in a minute, you need to have the 501c3. You need to have your own nonprofit. All of these are charitable that you're doing, but if you do it out of your pocket to help these individuals, it's not tax deductible. You need to use the nonprofit as that intermediary to be able to get the tax deductions for it. Now, I'm highlighting this medical missions or mobile clinics to go back to what I had mentioned before. Sometimes you see opportunities based on your skill set. And we have doctors, and one that I was working with and counseling with, he says, I've been working for another nonprofit where I had to do medical care and treatment internationally. The problem was I was limited to when I can go. I was limited to how often I can go. And because there's no follow-up that I can do, because I'm coming back, well, then I couldn't do certain types of procedures. To which I told him, use your own facilities, use your own clinic to be able to do that. You can get tax benefits and deductions for it, for any expenses that you incur in providing these services to the patients. You can do the follow-up and the routines, and you can do it whenever and how often that you want to do. And it was a thought that clicked in his head of something that he wanted to do. In addition, feeding the hungry, homeless, or poor, many clients that we work with are from overseas, especially from India, especially from Asia, and from Africa. And I should emphasize, whether it's India or Africa itself, because it's fairly large, from Nigeria to Kenya to Egypt, many of these clients want to give back to their villages and communities where they grew up. It's an important part. They've been successful in America. They're appreciative and grateful for what they have, but they also know there are a lot of challenges overseas, and they want to be able to make a difference. And it doesn't cost much money to do it. But to do it internationally, you need the 501c3. So that's an important thing to keep in mind with this. Now, I mentioned to you about the housing and the shared housing. We have clients that are doing shared housing that are assisting victims of domestic abuse, providing a place for them to stay until they can find something more permanent. And of course, I mentioned about the clean water and the sanitation. Addiction recovery is very popular with Anderson, doing the shared housing with recovery residents, providing a place to stay similar for the veterans. You're doing it for recovery residents to be able to help them find jobs, programs. They go through steps as well with AA to be on that path in the road to recovery so that they can overcome their addictions as well. Finally, there is also with the community support. As I mentioned, the housing can be for many groups here. For veterans, disabilities, elderly, all of these are where there is tremendous need, unfortunately. And again, the government is spending the money elsewhere, And I'm not going to make any political statements. We just know there is not enough fund. The government is not doing a sufficient job of supporting our communities. And that's the reality, especially with housing, especially with education. These are issues that are coming up all the time. And many of our clients want to help with both of these things. And then finally, there is job training, and there's always funding opportunities and grant opportunities that you can see, usually with government grants, to help with job training and employment support. And your nonprofit can change lives around the world. Again, the cost of it, relatively speaking, with that dollar is very easy. It's very low, I should say. It's the dollar is very strong against the foreign currency. So being able to spend the money to make a difference in these areas, we've seen this time and time and time again. A lot of times what they do is they set up the nonprofit here and either support an organization that is undertaking these projects and construction projects, or working with people that they know over there. They can essentially be a project manager or kind of take lead of being able to ensure that the money is being used for that intended charitable purpose. So in summary, with starting your nonprofit, these are the things and these are the benefits of why you should start your nonprofit now. And I emphasize again that last one. It's easy to set up and operate, and it doesn't require that you spend a lot of money to be able to make that impact. So your nonprofit can make a difference for many of these different groups and charitable classes. Whether you're children, widows, victims of domestic abuse, and again, within Anderson, working with over 1,200 clients at this point, we've done these hundreds of times for all of these types of groups that these nonprofits want to support. So perhaps you have been inspired. So what are the benefits? First, let me direct you to a video. I don't have the link, but I can certainly send you the link. You can find it if you go to Toby Mathis's YouTube channel and find the 9 benefits of forming a family foundation. And this video, I'll tell you, has generated ones and ones of views. Just unbelievable what I've received. Here are some of the comments. Is that a Led Zeppelin 2 cover in the background? Instant credibility. And for those of you who can guess the album in the background right now, I love vinyl. I love music. I listen to it all the time. I know everything from the 80s. You're not going to stump me on that. At least you shouldn't if it's from pop music. But I just love all types of music. Heavy metal, pop, 70s, 80s especially. So this is one of the comments I got. Another one, which was very, very inspiring, was I need some Karim in my coffee. Thank you for that one. Now here was another one that I just find to be rather interesting as well. It wasn't a negative comment, but you may want to know that the hair product was very distracting from his excellent info provided. I only share this as there are alternatives in the future. There is a spray in that remains dry and it's very affordable. L'Oreal. And it's sold at discount stores, so I hope you can delete this comment after the suggestion. Now, my guess is some of you are probably going to zoom in on my hair right now to see what my hair looks like right now. So I always love these comments. But going back now to about the benefits that we talk about within that video. And there are other videos and resources that we have as well. Some of the immediate tax benefits. You know, if you are a W-2 employee, you don't have many options of being able to get tax deductions. Sure, you have 401k and HSA. I'm going to tell everyone for sure you want to make sure that you max out of that if you can to get the tax benefits and deductions, because this is an investment for the rest of your life. But it caps out, unfortunately. And it doesn't matter whether you make $100,000 or $1 million. You know, it's going to be the same amount that you can donate into these 401k and HSA. Now, for the medical expenses, it does depend on your income, but the first 7.5% is excluded. So if you make $300,000, that means $22,500 is excluded initially. So if your expenses are $20,000, you don't get any deductions. If your expenses are $23,000, well, then you get $500 in deductions because the $22,000 is $500 is excluded at the top. But donating to a 501c3, now that's different. It is based on your income, and depending on what you're donating to, you can donate some up to the maximum that's allowed, or even in excess of that. You don't get the deductions now, but it gets carried forward. If you do a 401k and you put in more, you have to take it out or you're going to get taxed. The same thing with the HSA. You have to take out the excess or you're going to get taxed. If you donate to a 501c3 and you put excess amount, you don't get taxed, You don't get the deductions, but you will get it the next year or the following year. In fact, you have up to 6 years to be able to get the deductions. So how does it work? Well, if you're donating to a public charity and you're donating cash, then you can donate up to 60% of your adjusted gross income. So going back to this example, $300,000 and you can donate up to $180,000 in cash to a public charity. And if you donate $100,000, the entire amount you can deduct. Let's say you donated appreciated assets, non-cash. So non-cash is 30%, not 60%. That means if you're making $300,000, you can only deduct up to $90,000 this year, and $10,000 gets carried forward, but you don't lose those deductions. Now you can see what private foundations is 30% and 20%. And you may be wondering, well, which one would you do? I'm not sure if you're asking that, but I know many of you are already thinking in your heads that you want to set up a private foundation. And I would tell you, within Anderson, we don't do that. Before Anderson, I may have done that, saying, yeah, we need to set you up as a private foundation. Within Anderson, despite all of the characteristics that you've seen before and that I described to you before, we typically will set them up as public charities. And never has the IRS told us that we have to apply as a private foundation. You get better tax benefits. There's less restrictions that are applied within public charities and private foundations. And I always say this to our clients, look, I am on your side. I am on your team. I only care about what's best for the clients behaviorally, what's going to be the most cost effective, what's going to be the simplest to maintain and to manage. It's easily, without a doubt, a public charity over the private foundations. Don't believe what you see if seeing that there's a Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation or even Elon Musk and this is sexy and appealing. There is a lot of work involved with being able to maintain a private foundation, which many cannot handle behaviorally for the clients. They're smaller and it's easier doing it through the public charity. So I always recommend and advise the clients to do the public charities, and they have all said that was the best decision. In fact, the few, and it's not many, that have done private foundations, every one of them want to reclassify because they hate the reporting requirements that they have to do within a private foundation. So cash, 60%, appreciated assets that you have held for more than a year is 30%. So you must have held it for more than a year to be able to get those deductions. So just imagine the impact. You can give appreciated assets and pay no taxes. So if you donate $50,000 of stocks, real estate, or crypto, and you donate it to a public charity, for example, or a private foundation, it doesn't matter. You can donate, and you donate when the stock is worth $200,000. So it's gone up in price. You've held it for more than a year. You don't want to have to pay capital gains taxes on it. Instead, you want to donate it to your nonprofit. Well, you can do that and get the deduction. $200,000, fair market value. And if the C3 sells it when it's worth $300,000, they don't pay any taxes. So you've seen it go from $50,000 to $300,000 without paying any taxes at all. And in fact, the donor gets a tax benefit for something like this. So you can see the tax benefits, immediate tax benefits you can see. In addition, it's an effective estate planning tool. As I like to say, you're a nonprofit, your legacy. So you can use your nonprofit to pass on wealth, to support causes that you care about, and of course reduce or eliminate estate taxes for your heirs if that's going to be a situation or a problem that you'll be facing. And we do see that there's a lot of our clients having that issue, especially if it does sunset. Currently it's about 13 million per person, but it's intended to sunset, and when it does, it will be at 5 million. Now, we don't know. There's, Republicans are controlling Congress, so there's probably a chance that it's going to be extended. But we have to assume and you have to plan that it won't be the case. And if it is, it's going to go down to 5 million per person. So for a married couple, it's 10 million. And that will affect a lot of people. There's been a lot of wealth created through real estate and through stocks, especially through their 401ks or their own investment as well, in addition to the businesses they've been a part of. So, the effective planning with your nonprofit is you can move these assets outside of that, your estate, and into a nonprofit. And I will highlight again the characteristics within this nonprofit, but you can leave that lasting legacies, donating, whether it's appreciated asset or cash, to support the causes that you care about. Now, if you remember, I mentioned this to you before. Well, you can do this in a nonprofit. Just think about it. You're just shifting it over from your estate into a nonprofit of which you have control of the investments and the assets. You can decide and invest how it's going. You can decide how it's going to be invested and managed and how you're going to make the distributions. You can invest it however you want, and you can also pay yourself. And don't believe what you're seeing out there, from AI to what you're seeing in the press. There is no law that says you cannot pay yourself reasonable compensation for working in the nonprofit. To the contrary, and it's ridiculous to think that you can't pay yourself means you're going to be a volunteer. No nonprofit would ever succeed with just volunteers. And why? Because you have a job and you're going to get paid at that job. That's always going to take priority over the volunteer work you're going to do in a nonprofit. In fact, I have done volunteer work for nonprofits, and I can't tell you how many times I've had to keep pushing back things that I'm going to send to them because of the fact that I have a job that's quite demanding and I don't have time to be able to do the volunteer work, unfortunately. It's a commitment, and if you're not getting paid, there's not much of an incentive for many people to do it. So if you want to work within this nonprofit that you have set up and established, of which you're a permanent director, serving as stewards, investing it, managing how it's going to be done, you can also pay yourself reasonable compensation for the work. So you may decide, maybe as you're working for now, set it up, plant the seeds, and then at some point you may decide to retire. And when you do, you may want to get paid through this nonprofit. You can do that. So these are effective estate planning tools that you can do of working within the nonprofit while keeping it out of your estate. So as a summary of the tax benefits, I'm going to give you two more that are highlighted in red. Talking about reducing your taxable income, the better tax savings, and any excess contributions are carried forward. Finally, let's look at these last two, donating internationally. And I tell this to clients all the time. Listen, if you are looking for ways to get tax deductions, then you should be using the nonprofit to do benefits, helping others in need, but you're doing it in a way that if you did it individually, you're not going to get a tax deduction. So again, if you're going to go out and give food to the poor, needy, underserved, homeless, well, you're not going to be able to get a tax deduction. You can't give it to individuals. It's not tax deductible. And similarly, what if you're going to give international giving? Well, you need to make it, how to make it tax deductible, because donating overseas is not tax deductible. So if you donate directly to an international organization, you won't get a tax deduction. And I'll give you an example, is UNICEF, which shocks everyone. It doesn't qualify for tax deductions if you donate to UNICEF. Why? Because they are not a US-based entity. They are based internationally. International organizations operating internationally do not qualify for tax deductions. So what is their solution for UNICEF? Because we know they do charitable work. They help children with global relief, both in medical and education, and they spend billions and billions of dollars. So what's the solution? Use the UNICEF USA. They're based in the US, and then they give to UNICEF International. And now you can make your international gifts tax deductible. So let's say you want to fund a school, I don't know, in Kenya, you want to do it in India, you use your US 501c3, you can get the full tax benefits for it, and then you can give to those international organizations. So again, you need to structure it correctly, donate to your 501c3 that donates internationally, and it is tax deductible. And I will say this, it may be new to you about this and the way it works, but this is something we have done routinely, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. Very easy for us to advise on it because we've seen it hundreds and hundreds of times, and the IRS has approved these applications every single time. So we've never had any issues. You just have to make sure you have that US-based 501c3 that supports those international causes, and now it is tax deductible. So you can't do it directly giving to the international. You can do it indirectly through your nonprofit. And what can your nonprofit support? Again, we've talked about it before: orphanages, schools, hospitals, food, clothing, shelter, these water wells. All of these are typical examples. I even mentioned this cow sanctuary. What I like about this is this was a client who'd been donating hundreds of thousands of dollars internationally to a cow sanctuary. We told him, stop doing that. Set up your 501c3. Let us set it up for you. Put the money into it, and now you can give to that. And once he got that exemption, he was excited. He's poured hundreds of thousands of dollars. We help him with the donor letters. We do the compliance package for him. So we prepare the letters. And for his client, for this client and for his nonprofit, we issue hundreds of letters to all of the donors, his community, his friends, families, everyone around who also want to support the cow sanctuary. We've issued hundreds of letters for them. So he loves it. He loves the fact that he can do that, to be able to use that 501c3 to get those tax benefits. Similarly, donating directly to individuals, just like donating to international organizations. If you donate directly to support individuals, as I mentioned before, it will not be tax deductible. So to make it tax deductible, you have to structure it correctly. Donating to your C3 that supports individuals who are members of a charitable class. So for example, you can even provide scholarships to students, emergency relief to families in need, and you get the tax deduction by using your 501c3. How about GoFundMe pages? There was a GoFundMe page for one of our friends that needed medical support. Again, many people supported it. They're not getting the deductions unless they use that 501c3 to donate to that GoFundMe page. Another one needed medical care. He actually was in an accident, unexpectedly, uninsured, had a wife, 4 kids, had massive medical bills. He was in a coma. And when he woke up out of his coma, he had nearly $1 million in donations and support. Again, the power of that to be able to do it, using that C3, using it to support that GoFundMe page. For many of those people, very giving community for sure, no question about it, to get nearly $1 million. But none of it, almost none of it was tax deductible because it was from individuals. Imagine if you used your 501c3 to be able to support those others in need and in support. Now you're getting an immediate tax benefit. So in addition to that, kind of talking about the tax benefits, how about growing and sustaining your nonprofit? Without going into too much details with these things, for donations, we've seen it, individuals, businesses, fundraising events, and online giving. Now I say to you about all of these things, and you may not want to do this. You don't have to do it. And again, we got a lot of clients who don't want to. They're not good at it. They're not interested in doing it. They just want to self-fund it and they want to do their activities. No problem. Sometimes they say that when they start, but then they realize they also want to do some fundraising. And we tell clients, it's all about your elevator pitch. Start with your elevator pitch if you're going to do it. What is your mission statement? It all ties back to the elevator pitch and mission statement, kind of coming up with a 30 to 60-second infomercial about what your nonprofit does, highlighting and explaining the benefits that the funding and the donations that will be used for the nonprofit, how it will be used to support a charitable cause. So you never say we need the money because we don't have funding and we're lacking in funding. You're saying with every dollar that you contribute to us, we will be able to help X number of people within our community, making that impact. If you saw those slides before, the example of the one showing about the 1,000, it was distributed to 1,000 families, the food was. So in showing how those donations are making an impact by helping community members, you always want to be able to do that. And you do that through your infomercial, through your mission statement, through emails that you want to send out to people. If you're applying for funding, all of these things are the types of things that you would want to explain when you're seeking money and donations from funders. Applying for grants, same thing. You're explaining and highlighting how the money is going to be used. And then finally, we mentioned about the website, crowd giving, email, a subscription, to be able to continue to send out to your email subscribers and to kind of get it out in front of them frequently so they know that you exist and they know that the impact that the dollars that you have received will be used to help support community efforts. Now about unlocking grants. Well, you can get funding and grants from, say, foundations, corporations. There's technology grants, and the technology, maybe they're going to give you free technology, free software, free, like similar to Salesforce with a CRM. fundraising database as well to be able to, or a fundraising platform, to be able to do fundraising online. There's also community grants where they're going to help you in local areas and communities where they really want to help local communities. They're not interested if you're outside of the community. Also operational for overhead expenses. And then finally, there are some government grants. It remains to be seen how the government grants are going to work now, because we've seen a lot of changes, of course. There's been a lot of freezing, within the government. It's not as reliable as it used to be. It will depend on what you're doing. But if you're doing DEI, you're not going to get it. Most likely, if you're doing medical research, you're not going to get it as well. So these are the areas that we have seen where there's been funding freezes for sure. So they're not quite as reliable. Now, here's some examples of corporate grants, because there's lots of corporate grants in areas where you work. Whether it's something like Home Depot, if you want to do veteran housing, Walmart has every quarter they issue anywhere from $500 to $2,500 that you can get, and it's typically cash. Sometimes it may be other forms. There's a Coca-Cola Foundation, as I mentioned to you before. There's Costco and Target as well, so thinking about that. But even think about State Farm Insurance giving and helping in the area. So it's a lot with safety that they're looking at for something like this with State Farm. And then there's Kroger, hunger relief, sustainability, health and nutrition. So you may be helping to do with a hunger drive and helping to feed others and feeding poor communities. So there's lots of corporate grants, and I'm just listing a few. There's Starbucks as well. There's Bank of America if you want to do it. There's Wells Fargo. So there's so many different ones. Dick's Sporting Goods as well to help with kids and sports. So there's many opportunities of being able to get corporate grants, and the reality is they're underutilized. And being able to get matching grants is always an opportunity as well from your work. Next, there's real estate investing as an opportunity. We've seen it through shared housing, as I mentioned to you before, for the example for the veterans of shared housing. So shared housing, instead of having one family in a house that you see with affordable housing, you see with shared housing where they're sharing a house. It could be up to, as I mentioned before, four bedrooms with 8 beds. So now you can have 8 different people staying in the house. Some of them can afford to pay, and there may be opportunities for grants as well for the shared housing. Now we know, for example, and we've seen it successfully for clients being able to get the shared housing grant in Washington has been the most popular, but it is for recovery residents, specifically for recovery residents. But there are other opportunities as well to be able to get certain types of grants, possibly. It may not be enough to be able to support every resident staying in the house, but it may be enough to help with operational. And again, the shared housing, many of them can't afford to pay. They may be from wealthy families and they have kids who have addiction problems, and they just need a place to stay, and they need a place to get started again. So they have to go through AA, they have curfew, they have chores and errands that they have to do. They have assignments and tasks that they have to complete as well. They have to come home at a certain time, but they also have to go out there and find suitable employment as well. So they want them to become responsible individuals so they're able to leave. And we have seen many that have been successful with this model. There's also affordable housing, as I've mentioned before, very, very common for many of our clients, especially because they are familiar with the real estate investing. They're familiar with working with housing authorities, especially dealing with Section 8. So they're familiar with doing the affordable housing. There's also assisted living. And I had seen in one of the first slides, there was a presentation, I believe, from one of the Guarinos, and they do residential assisted living, and they have an academy. I say if you're interested in this, because it can be very lucrative, very profitable, because you can collect anywhere from $4,000 to $8,000 per resident that stays in the place. But you're going to have around the clock maintenance and have to have someone who's managing it around the clock 24 hours. So it can be more expensive as well, but there is certainly a lot of opportunities. And I would say if you're interested in that, attend the Residential Assisted Living Academy that's done by the Guarinos. And even if you don't want to attend the academy, they have a lot of resources on their websites because they are very involved in it. They are definitely the experts. And finally, there's real estate investment in general. If you're good at real estate investments, if you know how to rent property, then you can do this within your nonprofit as well. Now, the first 3, the reason why you can do it in the nonprofit, they qualify as charitable activities. Shared housing is charitable when you're providing it to those in need. Recovery residents is members of a charitable class. Affordable housing, also a charitable class. They're low-income individuals. And assisted living, you're providing it to elderly. They are members of a charitable class. But what if you invest to wealthy individuals? Well, they're not a charitable class, but it's considered to be passive investments if you're doing real estate investments over a long term. So it can't be like an Airbnb. That doesn't qualify. But real estate investments, when you have long-term residents in there and you're not an active landlord, perhaps, some changes need to be done. Some maintenance needs to be done within the property itself, but you're not actively involved in it on a regular basis, which is typical of most of the real estate investors that we have. Well, then all of these you can do within your nonprofit. Now, as the example for the shared housing, Sanctuary First Foundation, one of our clients, she provides the shared housing for those who are survivors of domestic violence, also veterans, and those who have substance use disorder. Again, this is very popular with the substance use disorder. You will see that there are the National Association of Recovery Residents. It's called NAR, and they have affiliates in almost every state, about 40 states at this point. And these affiliates kind of give you all the resources, all the documents, all the assistance to kind of help you, to guide you, to get your house set up to be able to do this if you want to provide housing and shared housing for recovery residents. This was probably one of the most popular things that we had been doing within Anderson about 2 years ago. We don't see it as often now. We see just a wide array of stuff, but for a certain period of time, this is what we were doing almost exclusively, or primarily, I should say, but it's not something that we see as frequent. We still get it, just not as often, but we have probably set up about 150 more than 200, I should say, nonprofits doing the shared housing with this model. And this is one of our clients here. How about passive investments? I'm always saying to our clients, whatever money you put in and that you fund in there, if you're going to keep it in there, and you don't need to use it all and spend it all, you can keep a large portion of it and invest it. Private foundations are only required to spend 5% of their investment assets. If you're a public charity, you don't even have to spend 5%, but I tell them spend 5%. So what are you going to do with the 95%? Well, you should invest it. Invest it in stocks and bonds, real estate investment trusts. If you don't want to do real estate itself, you can do it in REITs. There's government securities and crypto. All of these that we've seen with our clients do, and they're good at what they do for many of them. I'm not going to say all of them. I'm never going to recommend to clients to invest in individual stocks. But I know many people who do and are successful at it. And I get it. They're looking, perhaps they've invested in Tesla or NVIDIA, as NVIDIA is now shot up to $150, approaching that with a $3 trillion market cap. So if you bought it when it was a fraction of that, absolutely, you're making great money. But at the same time, a lot of stocks, they've corrected. And if you bought it at the top and you sold at the bottom, then you definitely lost. So, I say to them, I'm not going to give you any recommendations or tips on individual stocks. Just invest in the market in general. And I say to you is with this, there are a lot of people out there who can teach you about that. So perhaps they're very good at what they do. Anderson has a lot of programs. There are people who are extremely knowledgeable. And I say to you, tap into that and take advantage of that. That's just not something that I am personally recommending. But it doesn't mean there's one way to invest. There's many different ways to invest. As I said, people have invested in individual stocks, have done well. Others have invested in stocks selling covered calls. And that's what I have done for over 25 years, is I'll sell and I'll buy a dividend paying stock and I sell a covered call against it as well. And it helps you to generate all of this money. It's being like a stock market landlord. It's like owning real estate and collecting rental income. So I've been very happy with the results for it. But I'm not saying that everyone should do it. You should learn about it before deciding to do it. So instead, I say invest in the market. This is what the market has done on an annual basis over the last 10 years. And I should also mention, on any 10-year period of time, looking at this chart, any 10-year period of time, the market has gone up, with one exception, which was around 2009, from 1999 to 2009. But see what happened right after that. After 2009, when the market was between 500 and 1,000 for the S&P, we're now at over 6,000. So that presented a fantastic buying opportunity. But anytime you see a dip like you see here, another fantastic buying opportunity. Remember Liberation Day? It went from roughly around $5,800 to down to $5,000. That was definitely a fantastic opportunity, looking back in hindsight, because you can see where it is. It's actually over 6,000 now. I haven't really updated it, but it doesn't matter. It's just to highlight the significance, the power of what it can do if you invest when there are opportunities, and there will be more opportunities. And I say to anyone, invest it, do it regularly within your nonprofit, do it personally as well. And once it dips and you see a correction, that's another opportunity to go in and buy more. Here's the power of compound growth. Here's the the Hershey Trust. Now, it's not a Hershey candy, okay? It's not a church. It is a school, even though it says the name is the Hershey Trust. And this nonprofit has been around for 100 years. And what have they done? They've been able to take their investments and reinvest it, the profits, because they're tax-free. In a nonprofit, they're all tax-free. Taking it and reinvesting it to continue to build and build and build that you get with the investments that you have here. And as you can see the power of what it's done, of this compound growth when you are investing it and reinvesting it tax-free. Almost $1.5 billion that they have generated in investment income. That's just investment income. I mean, think about your own portfolio. If you're reporting investment income, that means your overall portfolio is even larger than that. Because if you have, say, dividends or covered calls and you're collecting hundreds of dollars, that means you have a portfolio that's worth thousands of dollars. So just imagine, this is 1.4 billion in just investment income. Their assets itself is probably $5 to $6 billion, even more than that. And they have tax savings of $700 million. So imagine being able to take that and reinvest it. So you can let your nonprofit's assets grow and multiply so that you can do more good for longer without having that tax drag there. So you can do this to build that lasting legacy using all of these strategies to grow your assets in your 501c3, to cover expenses, to make the distributions to help others, to create that perpetual income. And I emphasize this in your C3 and personally as well. Learn about the power of that investing. Those charts are not lying. If you've invested in that chart, and if you have a 401k, your chart looks exactly like that. But probably even better because you were buying when the market was low. And every time that you invested and put more money in when the market was low, then it certainly grows it gets even larger, or it's even more impactful once the market does go up. So again, as a summary, why starting now? And as I emphasize that last part, it is easy to set up and operate, and it's an opportunity for you to build that and create that legacy. Start early, and it can grow your investments that you have, whether it's through investments or through funding and through grants. There are just so many opportunities to be able to get funding to help support your nonprofit. So if you're ready to get started, I say, please let us help you. Reach out to us. I am a former IRS attorney. I'm proud of what I've accomplished after leaving the IRS. I used basically all the skills that I had learned on the inside to be able to do these applications. And I say this for a lot of our clients, they look at applications differently than the way we look at it. I am looking at it the way I used to work in the IRS. We had to prepare a memo to file every time we were reviewing these applications. And that memo to file needs to describe exactly why the organization qualifies for exemption. The problem was, especially for the DIYs, the ones that did it themselves, they did a terrible job of explaining why they qualified for exemptions. All they were doing was filling out and checking the boxes. They were not giving us enough information to make that determination. So we had to prepare that memo to file, and sometimes we would have to do the research. Well, knowing that's how it was and the time that it takes to do it, and it would cause delays on my end to be able to approve these applications, we prepare it for them, for the IRS agents. We prepare as if they have to do that memo to file. We are as thorough, as detailed as possible, highlighting why the organization qualifies for exemption, highlighting case law, any revenue rulings that are out there to support our position, to show why the organization qualifies, because they are making an impact. There is a problem in society. They have the solution of what they're going to be doing to fix that problem in society and why it qualifies, because they're providing services to a charitable class. And then we highlight any case law or any rulings or regulations that support it. And it's worked. We've been effective. Not a single application has been denied. Very few, we've had issues and delays with it. If we had, it's because it's an agent that's new and learning how to do the application process. Overall, we've seen a fast turnaround, some of them in as quickly as 3 to 4 days. If it's taking longer, it's not our fault. We know what we're doing. We know how to do the application process. Just to give you an example of some of these. And this is, after the new administration, and certainly things look to be a little slower. But right now, if you're submitting an application, and I took this from the website yesterday, you're looking at about roughly November 12th, 2024. And this is what you're seeing in terms of processing times. These are the most recent applications that we have submitted. And again, this is after we have the new administration, where we're seeing layoffs and we're seeing that there are delays at this point. We're getting them done, approved very quickly. So we are doing something right. And it's not just about getting these approved quickly. You have people on a team that knows what they're doing, that can help you with every step of the way, not just setting up the nonprofit, but throughout to become successful. Here are a lot of resources that we have created in terms of content. I've done these with Toby Mathis. Different videos, as I mentioned to you before about the public charities versus the private foundations. Check out this link in this article. You're going to see, and I'm going to explain to you why public charities are better than private foundations. Again, a lot of people think that private foundations are the way to go. And you may see that online and through AI and through what you see in terms of writing. I am just telling you from firsthand experience of applying to the IRS. We don't have any issues at all whatsoever when it comes to getting these to come out with public charities. But don't do this yourself. Most DIY applications are denied by the IRS. And why? Because the applicants don't know what they're doing. They're filling it out like it's a business plan. They don't want a business plan. They want you to show why it's a charitable activity and a charitable organization. Not a for-profit, but a charitable that's making an impact. These are examples of recent denials, of which all of these we apply routinely and get approved all the time. The sports organizations all the time, especially pickleball, has been one of them. We get them. We got one for axe throwing as one of them, and that got approved in 3 days, in fact. So we see these all the time. We know how to answer this. We know how to address it. We know why they are being denied, and we know exactly how to explain why it would qualify for exemption. So let us do it right for you so that you can avoid these common mistakes. These are examples here from the improper structure of setting up your nonprofit. People think of setting up an LLC. No, you don't want to set up as an LLC. Articles of incorporation, you have to include specific types of language in there. Asset protection, people want to do these unincorporated associations, which makes absolutely no sense to me. Even if you're unincorporated, because they think they're not going to be subject to regulations from the government, it is absolutely not true. Even if you're unincorporated, if you're operating an entity in the States, it's going to be regulated. So you should set yourself up and be incorporated. Finally, there's this IRS filings. A lot of them forget to do this, but we help with clients because you have a filing requirement as a nonprofit. You need to make sure you file annually. And within Anderson, with packages that we offer, we do the filings for the clients. But not only that, but we also make sure they get the reporting requirements that are done correctly. As I say here for number 4, consulting with an expert before donating property or assets. You need to have certain documentation. I'm going to show you in a few minutes, as I'm coming down to my last slides. You have also this improper classification. As I mentioned to you before, between public charities versus private foundations. Let me tell you one of the benefits of why you want to be a public charity. As I mentioned here about Walmart, giving out grants in the communities where they operate. However, you have to be a public charity. You're not going to qualify if you're a private foundation. But here's another example, and this one was quite interesting, and many people don't know about this example here. If you donate crypto to a private foundation, and let's assume it's $50 and you've held it for more than a year, and you donate it to the private foundation and it's worth $250,000. Remember the example I gave you before, you can deduct the fair market value. You can't if you're giving crypto to a private foundation. That is the exception. So you need to be a public charity. I had a client that mentioned to me he saw the videos. He wanted to do the private foundation. I tried to convince him. I tried and tried. He still wanted to do the private foundation. I said, okay, fine. It's if you want to do it, there's nothing I can do to convince you. I've tried everything I can. Except he told me right before we were about to file, and we were literally within minutes of filing, he told me about the crypto that he donated. And when he told me that, that's when I was floored that he never mentioned it before. And I told him, you cannot be a private foundation right now. And he had to think about it. And I said, you have to trust me, please. I am on your side. I'm not going to do anything to hurt you and to jeopardize what you have here. But you are missing out on $200,000 of tax savings. Why would you even think about this? Please trust me and let me do this for you as a public charity. And we did, and he got the exemption immediately. So it wasn't an issue with it at all. But for whatever reason, he's more comfortable with the private foundation until it was a crypto scenario. So again, you don't know what you don't know. And you think that all of these rules apply the same, but they don't. There's many differences between them. And another is the donor letter. We avoid these mistakes that we see all the time with donor letters. This one is not compliant. As you can see here, the letter, it doesn't include specific language that the IRS requires. And I'm not gonna say the IRS, it was Congress that passed these rules. So for a donation of a contemporaneous written acknowledgement, the donor, number one, has to receive this letter before filing the tax return. It's important. It has to contain specific language. No goods or services were given in exchange. This letter did not have that. And then there may be additional forms that are required for non-cash. So some recent cases, just to highlight the impact of how much they lost in terms of contributions, $64 million because the letter was not sent before filing and it didn't include that language. So the IRS in all of these cases acknowledged that a contribution is made. They were not disputing any of that. What they were disputing is that it didn't follow the regulations and you have to strictly comply. Even the tax court acknowledged that the contributions were made. That wasn't enough. It wasn't an issue of fraud. It was an issue of not strictly complying with the rules. And in each one of these cases, they did not comply. And I can tell you, if it wasn't for Anderson helping with our clients, this would happen time and time and time again. So we help them with a compliance package that we offer, making sure these don't, and you're not going to find anyone else who prepares your taxes as Anderson does, that also prepares your donor letter. There's no CPA that does it, and there's no tax advisor that does it. We do it because we've seen the problems that have happened time and time again, where clients think any letter will do, and that's not the case. So you have to make sure you have the proper letters, and we do make sure, again, many of these would have happened to our clients if we didn't help them out to make sure that they were fully compliant in terms of the letters and the appraisals and the correct forms that had to be submitted. So finally, a summary of our services, and please let us help you. It's led by a former tax exempt attorney. We have a great team that works there with proven experience and results. And I haven't even added these, but we do have these as well. We have a weekly live Q&A session. We do it every Tuesday for our clients. And we've answered over 3,000 questions there. You can hop on every Tuesday and ask all your questions. We have a resource kit. We've talked about the funding, we've talked about the grants, we've talked about websites, all of these. Well, we have templates, we have guides, videos, examples, and everything to help you, as we want to help you with preparing these documents. So we have example for appeal letters, examples of elevator pitch, example of mission statements, examples of what you should be writing and how you should be seeking and applying for grants, including corporate grants. And then we have this ongoing community where we have a Facebook page where you can use for networking and support and sharing ideas. But this is all exclusively for clients that work with us, where we can set up the nonprofit for you. Or if you already have a nonprofit, which some of you may have, if we handle the compliance package for you, where we do the tax preparation for you, we do the donor letters, and we'll do the charitable solicitation registration, which is required in states. If you are actively seeking donations, you need to register with the Attorney General. So we do those filings for you as well. And then finally, at our weekly Q&A sessions, we'll also give you updates and information about third-party resources, grant opportunities, and any other relevant information that can help you in terms of getting information for your nonprofit. So if you're ready to build your legacy, please sign up for a strategy session. Here is the link. Here is the QR code. And I thank you all for attending. And my name is Karim Hanafy. Thank you all for letting me speak to all of you. And I thank all of you for pretty much staying. We were able to keep almost everyone here. I don't think anyone dropped off because I know we're a little bit over an hour, but I appreciate your patience and I appreciate your staying with me. Wow.
Karim, you're awesome. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that information. Honestly, it's one of the better webinars I've seen this year, and that's true. I'll even tell Don that. See, you're getting thumbs up already. See that?
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Just fascinating, though, the details. And I think it's critical, and you mentioned this multiple times, it's just critical to know you don't know what you don't know. And so if you do it wrong, a lot of people, we find that all the time, just want to go out and do it. And maybe, several years ago that was possible, but it's not possible anymore.
No.
So
And
that's
you're
why,
right.
absolutely. Go ahead.
And I should add, with this new administration that we see here, things are moving differently. There's even banned words. You can't say underserved communities. You can't say underprivileged. You can't even say women, and you can't say communities. So we have to go through now and make sure that we're using the correct language in there to ensure that it goes through quickly. It's unbelievable, kind of the way things are. But this is only for the application. It doesn't mean you can't do this once you're a nonprofit serving these communities. You just can't include that in the application. That's all.
Fascinating. Yeah. Okay. So guys, make sure you connect with Karim and his team. Again, Don and I, the reason we have Karim and Anderson Advisors on our webinars is because they know exactly what they're doing. And again, use the wrong language, you can get denied. It's a big deal, especially when you're expecting a big deduction for setting everything up. So definitely reach out to Karim and his team. Karim, I'm going to put a link in the chat. I know that goes to Anderson as well. That'll go to you guys and connect. It's the same referral link for Anderson. Set you guys up for a consultation with your team. Do you know, Karim, usually when they click that link, they fill out the information, they want to do a nonprofit or whatever, someone then will schedule a call with you or someone on your team to kind of go through what they want to do, correct?
Yeah, I believe what will happen is there'll be one of the advisors that will be there to talk to them about it. And if they want to reach out, and I could certainly give you my contact information as well if you'd like, if they want to reach out and connect with me too. Here's the email address that I have here if you'd like to use. You can use this or NonProfits at Anderson Advisors, NonProfits plural. So, the recommendation is to go through this with a strategy session simply because there may be a lot of people that are coming through with it, but you can always reach out to me as well at any point. So using both.
Yeah. Very clean. It schedules a call, makes it a lot easier for you and your team. So yes, we definitely recommend that just because a lot of you do sign up. So please do that, guys. You mentioned our good friends. We used to be, Gene Garino, he's since passed. But the Garino family is absolutely incredible. We love them, and they always have a good phrase that I love, and this applies very well to nonprofits. Do good and do well. So you can do both, and I love that. I obviously a lot of you on here already do very well. Now it's time to do good for the world out there. And do well doing it. Why not? Like you said, although fish on a treadmill is great, Karim, I still think there's better options.
Exactly. I agree 100% on that. So,
Love that. That was fascinating.
and it doesn't take much money, as I said before, to be able to set up the nonprofit. You just got to be a giver and you want to make a difference, So no matter how little you do to impact, it's going to make a difference, in your community. No question.
And it feels good too. You've made some money, maybe now do well with it too. I love that. That's what the purpose of life is a lot of times,
Yeah.
and that's proven to make you happy. So you want something happy to feel good. This is where it's done. So good for you. Thanks, Karim.
Yeah.
Are you okay then? We do a few questions.
Yeah, absolutely. You can do that.
All right. Sean asked, is there a training that Anderson Advisors does that goes into depth and covers everything to get my financials in order, including tax? And I think this goes back to something more broad, right?
Yeah.
Not specifically nonprofits, but yes, they do.
They do, if you want to do, for example, to set up a tax strategy, yes, but there's always going to be a package. It won't be a free consultation. But I would say this to you is if you want to find out, you can call in, sign up for a strategy session, call in, and let them know this is what you want, and then they're going to be able to direct you to how things need to be done. So you can get a free strategy session and a consultation. They'll even set up a blueprint for you, tell you what you need to do, in terms of the next steps moving forward. For the tax strategy, you probably need a tax package at some point to purchase to be able to speak to an advisor where they can help you. But I'll tell you though, for many people that do, they get their money back in terms of tax savings and strategies. And in one of the packages, they even offer that as a guarantee. So again, please reach out to them to find out.
Yeah, suggest you do it. Click that link, go to that, scan that QR code. Their team will get you set up if you need tax, if you need legal, nonprofit, whatever you need, it's all there. Their team can do it, and they're very good at it. That's why we use them. Okay. Sean says, I'm donating to the Philippines for children. I have a 501c3 here in the U.S. I would like to know more about what I need to do and to find out more. And that's really how they do it, is go to the link to find out more.
Yeah. So use the 501c3 if you're going to be donating to that international. Make sure that you donate to your 501c3 first before you do that. But yes, please, you can set up a strategy session to get more information and details. But just at a basic minimum, if you're going to be supporting in the Philippines, you want to donate through your 501c3 first before giving internationally to get that tax deduction.
So cool. See, good to know. Okay. Bhishma, is it possible to set up a nonprofit that grows and supports charities in perpetuity?
Absolutely. And that was exactly what I was highlighting here with this, is that there are many different ways that you can do it. And I just like to mention the investment part again, over and over again, because if you are good with investing, and even if you're not, just investing in the market in general, the market does well over time. Don't believe the conspiracy theories and everything. The proven history of showing what the market looks like over any 10-year period of time, over the past 150 years, that's more telling than someone saying, not this time, or this time it's different. It is a great way to invest. But then there's funding and there's grants as well. There's many opportunities out there. And the objective for many of them is they want this thing to grow over time so that they can have this in perpetuity to create that family legacy. And that's what we encourage for all of our clients, for sure.
Very cool. Yeah, that's a problem a lot of people face, is how to do it for perpetuity. Very cool. And you covered this a little bit. Bhishma asked how to assign charity contributions from retirement, such as IRAs and 401ks.
So the 401k, you'll have to take it out first, and you'll pay taxes on it, and then you can donate it to your nonprofit. Through an IRA, you can do it directly from your IRA to a qualified 501c3. You just have to be a 501c3. So it can't be pending. You need to be the 501c3, and then you can make this qualified charitable distribution from your 401k. But you're limited to, this year, I believe it's 108,000. And you have to be over 70 and a half. So, you have to meet the age requirements, and then you have to make sure you don't exceed the income requirements with that as well. But you can do it through your retirement IRA.
Very cool. Okay. Martin, and asking what an average cost is. I'm sure that varies very much depending on what they want to do. That's probably a harder one to answer.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I'd say this, just, in terms of the strategy session, please speak with them about it. It's a few $1,000s it's going to be to cost to set it up. But I tell you, just the experience, the expertise, and then the ease of getting it done, and then just the ability to be able to make your donations, to get the tax deductions, and even the money you spend on the nonprofit is tax deductible as well. That could be a charitable contribution. So,
what a cool thing. It pays for itself. That's a cool thing.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
Serini, excellently presented and very detail oriented. Thanks, Karim. I love that.
Thank you very much. I love the feedback.
I love it. Yeah. Can you talk about the difference between registering a 501c3 as an organization versus a church, and what are the advantages versus disadvantages?
It's a great question. So churches, you have to meet the characteristics of a church. And that means you have to have a place where you meet regularly to congregate. It can't be online. You can do it online, but you have to have a physical place where you meet. It's not, the religion itself is not as much of an issue. It could be any religion, and they're not going to scrutinize it as long as you firmly believe in this and you have a set of beliefs and you have people that meet regularly and you educate them and you want to meet about once a week. Some of them will meet a couple of weeks in the month instead. You have education for adults and for children. You have weddings, similar to baptisms and funerals. These are all characteristics. You don't have to have all of them, but you have to have many of them. There's 15 characteristics that they look at. You want to have about at least 10 of those characteristics to be able to qualify. Now, the benefit is you don't have to file a tax return, a 990. You're basically not, IRS isn't going to scrutinize you. They don't touch churches at all. They don't like to. There's separation of church and state, and they stand by it. Your risks of audit are very low. Of course, the contributions are still tax deductible, and you're usually exempt from property tax, and you'll be exempt as well from any registrations that you have to do with the state, the attorney general as well. So there's a lot of benefits if you can qualify as a church. And I always push clients when they're doing the ministry stuff that let's try to squeeze you into this church qualification, because once you do that, it's a lot easier. You can do the ministry work and going out there while you're also doing the work here. And we've had even churches where they are going place to place and house to house as they're doing worship there, because they don't have a physical place at this point, and they won't have it until they can get the funding, but it can still qualify for a church. So we try to squeeze them into that classification if we can.
Very cool. So you're saying if I believe that Howard Jones has the best vinyl from 1980,
Yeah,
and that's
yeah.
my religion, I can do it, huh?
Yes, if you are the school of Howard, the Church of Howard Jones, yes, and you like the song "Everlasting Love,"
Amen.
and yeah, "What Is Love" is a great song. "New Song" is a great song by him. What was that? What was that song? Things Can Only Get Better. I mean,
Good song.
so many good stuff. Yes, see, we can form our own church right now. I think it qualifies.
Let's go. I
Yeah.
love it. That's awesome. Okay. You can't be stumped. I like it. Okay. Can a charitable trust complement a nonprofit 501c3? Is it one or the other, or can they complement each other? Good question.
Yeah, great question. They can complement each other. So what happens with the charitable trust is you put the assets into this charitable remainder trust, for example. You're using it to generate a stream of income for yourself. And then at the end of a certain period of time, usually 20 years, the remaining assets will go into this 501c3 organization. So the requirement to have that charitable remainder trust is you need to have, if I'm assuming that you're asking for a charitable remainder trust, I'm assuming that's the question. If that's what it is, then you have to have that charity to be a part of it. If you're asking whether you can set it up as a trust, which a lot of nonprofits do, you can do that and apply for a 501c3 exemption. But I will tell you, the one time we did, and it wasn't because we set up the trust, because we never set them up as trust. It was a client that came to us that had set it up, and it was very difficult to be able to dissolve it. We just applied for exemption with it, and the agent came back with a number of questions because the agent didn't understand how the trust works. Even though it does work like corporations, it's just difficult for them to understand it. So you can have a charitable trust apply for 501c3 if that's the question. So kind of answering both.
Very cool. I didn't know that. I love that. Okay. Is there a list of charitable classes?
Well, I can go all the way back to the slides I have, but the example of the charitable classes, it's going to be low income, those who are distressed, those who are elderly. It's not veterans, but veterans who are experiencing PTSD, homelessness, having marital issues, need job placement. All of those would qualify for it. So again, those distressed. Widows are considered to be distressed. Special needs are a charitable class. Recovery residents are a charitable class. I mentioned low income. Scholarships and education for anyone, applying and providing scholarships to anyone would also qualify as a charitable class. medical assistance and support to those who can't afford it, for families and individuals also qualify for it. So I think that, and animals as well, animal sanctuaries and providing and assisting for animals, whether it's a sanctuary or a rescue shelter, those also qualify. Food, anything like I'm trying to think of the word here, but anything for food and housing that you're helping for the homeless would also qualify. Food drives, things like that. So
Fascinating.
I think I've covered everything.
Okay, yeah, no, that's cool. That's very, very cool. There's so many options.
Yeah.
My church donates to churches in Africa. Can I set up a 501c3 so I can donate to them and also different churches?
That's absolutely, and I highly recommend that because now you have control as to where you can donate it. If you give it to the church, they may use it for something, if a general purpose to cover operating expenses, and may not use it specifically for what you want to use it for. You want it to go to Africa. Now you have control of where you can donate it. You want to donate it to other churches, you can do that. We have an organization that helps churches that need funding. So they look around for churches throughout the country, and if they need money and donations to help build that church, because many of them see, you're obviously building a community and you're helping more and more people within that community. So they are just specifically supporting those churches that need to be built or need some support. And then you can also do it internationally as well, absolutely. And again, I highly recommend using your nonprofit so you have control as to where you want to make those donations.
Very cool. Okay, we've got about 3 questions left, and we'll wrap it up there if that's okay, everybody. Bishma is asking, I would like to donate to help with climate change, green energy, and wildlife and forest preservation. How do I best do that? Great question.
Yeah, great question. You can do all that within one nonprofit, for sure. But for those things like that, most likely you're either looking at donating to other organizations, or if you want to be able to do these activities, that may be a little bit harder to do on your own of dealing with it. The climate change, the green energy, the wildlife, most likely you would do it as an educational piece if you wanted to do it yourself, to educate people about them and how they can make an impact and make a difference, and then perhaps do these collections and these drives and kind of do the community efforts. Or you just donate to other 501c3 organizations or other organizations that do this. And I would think in your case, probably start off setting up the C3 and donating to these other organizations first, and then maybe one thing at a time to be able to set up and do these different types of activities as well.
Very cool. Okay. And how does all differ from donor advised funds?
Yeah, that's a good question. Donor advised funds are very limited. So if you want to put into a donor advised fund, what it won't let you do, you won't be able to give internationally. You won't be able to give to individuals. You can only give to 501c3s, but if they know that you are on the board of that C3, they may not give to that C3. Some of them have restrictions that the DAF owner cannot also serve on the board of the 501c3. So there's a lot of and they don't give to private foundations either. And if they know the money is going to be used to pay someone like you who donated through the DAF, and it's going to be used to pay you, then they won't give it either. So there's a lot of restrictions that they have with some of these donor advised funds. And as I mentioned to you before, you have the ability to give to individuals, to give internationally, to give wherever you want. You can give to for-profit or nonprofit organizations within your 501c3 as long as it furthers a charitable purpose. You can do any of that. You cannot do that through the donor advised fund. So it's very restricted as to what you can do.
So Bishma, it sounds like you need to sign up for a strategy session. You've thought this out a little bit. I would definitely sign up for a strategy session.
Yeah.
Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but you have a lot of options and they can tell you yes or no.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, last questions. Is a charity in Puerto Rico considered a U.S. charity qualifying for tax deductions?
It is. It is, absolutely is. It's one of the countries or regions that also is included for that. So yes, you can. And sometimes what we would say is, if you're going to do that, and even if it wasn't, the strategy would be, hey, why don't you set up a a nonprofit in a state like Nevada, which is where we set up a lot of ours, set up in Nevada, and then you can operate and do these things internationally as well. So even if it wasn't deductible, there are workaround strategies to be able to make it deductible. Very simple solution.
Very cool. All right, Bishma says she's going to set up a session with you. Love that. Please do.
Awesome.
Anderson's good at what they do. Clearly, Karim, the brains behind the operation. You can tell. You can feel it. You can sense it.
Awesome. Thank you.
I appreciate it very much. So I guess last question is, what's the best vinyl of all time?
Oh, I got a few, but look, I'm a Beatles fan, so I really
figured.
love. I have back here, Sergeant Pepper, but
All that.
yeah, but I prefer Abbey Road over Sergeant Pepper personally, and I'm not a big fan of the White Album. The White Album side two is such a dud compared to side one. Side one is so good, and side two is so bad. So. But I like Metallica. I'm a huge Metallica fan, so I'll go with the old Metallica, old Iron Maiden stuff. I like that as well.
Ooh, wow. Yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah, oh, yeah. So I have a pretty good collection, I'll tell you.
I can tell. Well, hey, I think there is something to be said about vinyl versus digital. It just hits different, no doubt about it.
The clicks and the pops, I'm still like the sound of the clicks.
It's classic. I like it.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Karim, seriously, thank you very much for your time. It's been a blast. Had an honest pleasure to have you on. And really, everybody, you can tell Karim knows what he's doing. He's got a lot of expertise and experience, which is the main thing here, experience to help you get things done. So, Karim, thank you so much for being on tonight.
Oh, thank you so much. It's great to be here, and I thank all of you for being here and for the fantastic questions and the feedback and the thumbs up and the loves and the laughs, all of that. Thank you so much, everyone.
Everybody, thank you so much. Watch the recording, and we'll see you again next time. Have a great night, everybody. Take care.